Hi, nice to meet you. I'm
Nice
Mana from
meeting you.
NextShark, from like the largest Asian American publication. And so have a few questions for you today. Okay, so what or who inspired you to go onto the path of stunt work and fight coordination?
Well, I mean, like I said, I grew up watching Bruce Lee movies and Jackie, Sammo, Yun Biao movies growing up. So, I mean, I used to love those movies. To get into stunt work, I had like coaches in my martial arts school that were stunt guys before me. So I just kind of followed them into it. And then they're big directors now. David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, who they directed the John Wick movies and Hobbs and Shaw, Deadpool.
Okay, so was it kind of like an unexpected journey? Like, did you find yourself on this path as something like you
And I
knew you
want
wanted to do?
No, I mean, this like it was completely by just kind of fell into it. I graduated from school. My parents wanted me to do something in science, and then I was doing martial arts all the time, and I just wanted to do something else. Like I just felt that was more my calling.
And so, how do you think gun fu and gun work has evolved across your projects and
Mhm.
differs from the traditional martial arts that we see in movies and pop culture?
Well, I mean, uh, I grew up watching John Woo, the early John Woo movies, so that's like the origin of technically of the gun fu stuff, right? So for us, when we reinvented it, I mean, you just have to go with the times. It's like they didn't worry about bullets running out and things like that. Where we made the reloads more of an art form. So we combined the close combat martial arts with the shooting with the reloads. So we just kind of took it up like a couple notches, you know. But I have to give credit to where credit's due. I mean, I used to watch Chow Yun Fat and those guys in high school, and used to copy that quite a bit. So that's our biggest influence, of course.
Mhm. So, how would you tackle fantastical, like wire worked martial arts without making it appear like gimmicky on screen?
I mean, that's the hardest thing. I mean, I like to do stuff that's a little bit more grounded and like more realistic. So if we do wire work, it depends on the genre it's in. Like if it fits in the world, like let's say Matrix, it fits in that world, or a wuxia movie like Crouching Tiger or something. If it fits in there, then the wire work is not distracting. It doesn't, right? Like a comic book movie. But if you're doing something more grounded, then you tend to do the wire work as more of accentuation to what the hit is or the impact is. So it just depends on what genre you're shooting.
What was it like to follow in the footsteps of a Hong Kong and Hollywood choreographing legend like Yuan Wu Ping?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah.
I mean it's a hard thing because you know those are the guys I grew up idolizing. I've done quite a like my resume. I've done a lot of movies, but I mean those are the guys I kind of grew up on. So to follow him and do stuff, it's nerve wracking at the same time as well as being like an honor. Like oh wow, right? I'm trying to do what he did, and the funny thing is my mentors were the doubles on the original matrices. So it's like I have a lot to I have a lot to live up to, right? So when I just got into stunts when they did like the second Matrix, right? So to you know to follow them into that movie or that property is very it's kind of scary but exciting at the same time.
Keanu Reeves plays two very different characters in John Wick and The Matrix. In John Wick, he's executing like extremely tight and like lethal kills as Baba Yaga, versus in The Matrix, his movements are simpler and almost he's an all-powerful savior as the one. So, how were you able to portray these characterizations through different fighting styles?
I mean, that was pretty simple. At least like with Neo, when he was the Matrix stuff is based off Chinese martial arts. So everything's kind of circular or more fluid. And we based John Wick off like Japanese martial arts, which is kind of linear and very like short and efficient. So just the fighting styles alone are completely different. You have to cinematize things according to the character. So I'll take liberty with some of the flow from let's say Chinese martial art movies or Hong Kong movies. I grew up on that, so I like that rhythm that it's constant, doesn't stop. Just the styles alone are completely different. In Neo, he's more Chinese kung fu, and in John Wick, he's more Japanese jiu-jitsu. So a hard style and kind of a softer style.
So, how would you say his Keanu's training for The Matrix, like differed from John Wick?
It differed a lot because John Wick, we did a lot of ground and throwing and stuff like groundwork, throws, and fighting with a gun, right? So it's completely different style as opposed to the Matrix. He already has a kind of that vocabulary with it because of the first three movies. It wasn't so much like hard impact on his body, right? Where in like John Wick, he has to grab guys and physically throw them and off balance them. Whereas Matrix, it's more like a dance between two combatants. So it's not so much close quarter combat, like the hand and feet range, like a farther range, I guess, more of an outside range type of fighting. So there's not enough like force meets force kind of thing. So it's just less impact on his body.
So in Resurrections, it's been about like 60 years since its previous installment. The Neo we see in Resurrections is very different from the original trilogy when he was in his prime. So what did you change in Neo's fighting style to show him as like a returnee and veteran to the Matrix?
Well, it just wasn't as like the stuff he was doing, like it's more labored for him. And he kind of, it's like getting back into the gist of things. Like your mind knows, but your body can't follow. So it's like you remember how to do things, but your body just doesn't have the same timing or the same endurance. So we just kind of try to keep that in mind. It's like an old gunslinger that kind of, retired for so long. And it's hard for him to get back into that kind of that mode when he was in his prime. So we just kind of kept very aware that he just wasn't like just over time, he wasn't as skilled. If we're kind of relearning everything in a short amount of time. So that's what we just tried to do. Yeah.
In watching the film, you could feel his weight. Every time he's trying to do like a single push, he's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort, right? Right. So that's the whole thing, is like, because he did all these kind of movies, like he's very good about, like, Keanu knows his body really well, so, and how to play those things. So, the effort thing, he he was doing, like, say in John Wick, he's doing it for real. And this one, he's like, it just more of a strain on his like his spiritual power, his chi. That's how we're trying to play it.
And then meanwhile, you have Trinity here, like scorpion kicking like it's nothing.
Yeah, she's still fluid.
Yeah. Like, honestly, watching her, I'm like, wow, she still got it.
She still got it, right?
Yeah. So out of the training for Keanu, Yaya, Carrie-Anne, and Jessica, whose fighting style did you most enjoy, like choreographing? Because there was definitely like mixing of Eastern and Western motifs going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, all of them, you have to kind of give them their own flavor. So you don't want to make them all fight the same. So like usually when I do that, I bring my team, and then like their primary trainers are all different. So with Keanu and Carrie, it's like you're doing more like Eastern, because we have to keep up with the Eastern influence, where you keep up with the first three movies. And then with Yaya and Jessica, we kind of did a hybrid, more like Western, like boxing, and then the Southeast Asian martial arts, more like Thai boxing and silat and things like that. So just trying to keep them less Chinese central and more just more Westernized, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Jessica mentioned how one of the characters that she tried to draw from when she was studying for the role was the anime character Kenshin.
Oh, yeah.
And how she wanted to.
Yeah, we did. We tried to, like, she did really good, like, job of trying to make her fast and always changing directions all the time. So we tried to keep it. We tried to use a lot of her fighting style like that, where she's kind of changing direction a lot, kind of stays low, that kind of deal. So she did really well, I thought.
Yeah, and it's like similar with like Yaya, like he's taking on like the role of Morpheus, and so
he has to like keep his presence up. So the hard thing for Yaya is you don't want him ducking and changing his posture too much. You want to maintain that presence. So we try to make him more upright and stand up, as opposed to kind of being crouchy and more like comic book like, a little bit more grounded in how he fights.
Yeah. And so for Carrie-Anne, it didn't seem like she had like as much of a labored experience as Keanu did. And so was that intentional?
No. I mean, she didn't have, well, he's in the whole movie technically has more, he has more fight sequences, but she trained just as long as he did. Like, gosh, I mean, so we trained, I would say we started in December and started shooting in like February, end of February or something like that. So like she trained just as long as Keanu did. So, getting back in shape and in that world, it's hard. It's hard when you've been away that long. So she worked really hard, and you can see it. You can see it when she does stuff.
Yeah. And those are actually all of my questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Okay.